It is a great honor and a privilege to introduce Meir Marilus. We here in your beautiful home in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem. And Meir, can you tell us a little bit about your illustrious family, very special family?
I don't want to speak about my family, but Dr. Glassman asked me so much, so I can't refuse him. He's such a very nice man.
Thank you.
First of all, I'll explain the origin from the name Marilus. There's every Marilus in the world you will meet is my family. There's only one family Marilus in the world. How comes? Because my grandfather's grandfather was the Reb Shimon Yaroslav, Rabbi Reb Shimon Yaroslav, next to Lezhensk, not far from there, and he was called Marilus. And every Marilus in the world comes from him, because the name Marilus doesn't have any signification. So nobody will give Stam Marilus. Rabinovich couldn't meet, but days I met, it was written once that, I'm not sure if it's right, that Marilus is Rosh Tevus from Moreno Rabbi Yehuda Leib Psuros. There was such a Admor. And why he gave it the name after him, I don't know. This is the Marilus. The rest of the origin from the family, you can see here the Baal Shem Tov, the Chacham Tzvi, the Berditchev twice. This is from my mother's side also. For my wife's side, she was the granddaughter from the Admor Mistrikov before the war. So the Admor Mistrikov, which was here after the war, was her uncle, as her mother's brother. So there were 10 children at home, and only he with his sister, which was my mother-in-law, remained after the war. And the Brisker Ruf brought him here because as a child he understood in Marienbad that he was a very big Talmud Chochem. He would be, and he was a Rebbe in Brisk, which is one of the most famous Rebbes, which was not because a lot of people, but because of his mind, clever mind, and Baal Teure, big Baal Teure. And I tell you one story which is not written about him, that because you understand why, he had, and still his, but he is not there anymore, Chosid, very near Chosid. I give you a background. She was a big Talmud Chochem, and big, very clever, everything, but Parnosa he didn't have. So when the Rebbe passed away, my wife was sitting there with her mother, Shiva, and came in the wife from this Chosid, and she said she was very sad. She did quite a lot tearing, which was, and so they understood. Normally they were so near to him. No, she said, no, not because of this, because she had 5 children. 4 of them got married, but how did they get married? They didn't have any. So they came to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, you promise, I will arrange it. But here now, she has another child, and what will be? So now in the Shiva, she tells to my wife and to the people there that one of the son-in-laws from the Rebbe came with an envelope. The Rebbe said, if he won't be by the Chasana, here you have an envelope. And this is for me biggest moifus. This tells you about who he was. And the other ones are unknown people. There's the Choiv and Rapshitz and Elimelech, and as you can see here.
That's Rabbi Elimelech Milezhensk.
Yes, here is on this side. Here on this side you see Elimelech Milezhensk. My father was born Chof Aleph Adar, the day of the Yosite, and he lived in Romania. My father. This is straight up. We had a great grandfather in Romania, which was called Rabbi Yosele Buchech, not Buchach, and they called him the small Baal Shem. And he was born Chof Aleph Adar, and then they had to take him to the army. He had to go to the army, and they asked his parents which date he should go. And he went, and the parents told him, you have Chuf Aleph Ador, you can go there. So he went on Chuf Aleph Ador, and when he arrived there, there stood the ambulance which took away the major from the world, and they freed him off. This is the original story from my father, not I heard from somebody else. And the story of our family is like this. My father was living in Bucharest, a small town next to Yas, Botoșani, in Romania. And my mother was in Lipcan, which was not in Basarabia, which was not far from there. And her father was the Rav from the town. There was also a small town of 12 Bate Knesset, but they had buried their Eretz for him. One of the stories which is written in the book about is that, for instance, Rosh Hashanah, most of the Bate Knesset, he was the Baal Makre from the first, and they waited till you came from one Beit Knesset to the other to be the Baal Makre, because he was a big Talmud Chum, and everything happened by him at home, the guest. And my father told me that the guests they slept there when he was up for 5 o'clock in the morning to learn. And the guest told him, Ruv, I want a tea. Ruv, my cover is not good. He was like this for the guest. And then he down there, gave a shear, everything. This is from my mother's side. And my father's side is from Admor Mishpocha, Admorim. And after they got married 2 years before the war, 38. And when my father lived by his father-in-law, by my grandfather. And when the war broke out, they were sent to Transnistria. I don't know if you heard Transnistria. This is next to Moldova. And they went out 10,000, and they arrived 500 after the war. That's what stayed from them. How did they get out? Well, the Nissim, you know, but their proper story is that they went on the way they had to go, and suddenly 2 young women came to them and told them, we are Jewish, go out here to the left and we'll take care of you. So my father told them that I can't go out alone because my grandfather was behind them. And but how will they know who was my grandfather? So he told them there's the only one with the beard. The German wanted to take off his beard and he didn't agree. Even if they would kill him, he didn't agree. So this way they could recognize, and they stood there for a few years till after the war. After the war, I was born in this place which is called Lipcan. There's a book about it, Lipcan. And they lived there. They immediately ran away from there because it was from the communists. One didn't want to stay by them. And it was right after Pesach. They ran away, and even though there was snow, and 3 weeks later was my bris in Chernovitz. My bris was not in Lipcan. They ran away immediately, and there they lived for a while. And my father had a brother which was the roof from different places. At the end he was the roof from Bucharest. At the end of his life was not special life, but he was we asked Rabbi Rosen he should let him out. He said, no, I need a poisek. He was a very big poisek. And he was going with a Streibel and Bekische in Bucharest after the war. It was so after 3 years, my mother's brother's brother-in-law, he lived in South Africa, maybe you know him, Rabbi Rabinovich, Shlomo Rabinovich.
The name's very well known.
Yeah, he was a rabbi in South Africa, I don't know where. And he organized a train like going to Honduras. They never went to Honduras, you understand? I have still the passport which going to Honduras. And then on the way Honduras, the train stopped in Antwerp, and my parents went there. Why? I tell you, 68 people went off the train. Why did my parents go there? because when my father was born, a little bit before the Second World War, my grandfather, his father's father, was a Stickel Rebbe, or his mother's father, I don't know, there was a Stickel Rebbe, and he ran away, he smelled already something, and he ran away to Berlin. I don't know that, if you know, in Berlin there was a street with Chassidische Stiebler, you know, the Grenadierstraße. As I know, I heard later. There were a lot of, there was not only Yekkes. And he took with himself the biggest grandchild, because in Romania there was nowhere to learn real yeshivas. My father learned in days later, but he took him to Berlin with him. So my father, when he passed, when they flew away to Berlin, my father was maybe 2 years. He didn't know him, and he never saw him till when he arrived in Belgium. But he knew I had a brother, and the people which came to help to the people which came from this train, they told him, "You are Marilus? Yes, this is your brother." And therefore he understood him. That's what happened where I understood the brother. He knew him the first time when he was 37 years.
And what happened to the rest of the family in the Shoah?
Only my grandmother was killed, shot down, and even they didn't let my father look back. They told him, "If you're looking back, we're killing you." And he couldn't bear this because she was a big tzaddik, as he told me. She was fasting most of the week, and as in just church, they were killed. That's it. And the rest of the family, my grandfathers, they came out. One or two of them, they passed away after because they were so weak, just after the war. That's the way where they were saved from the war, and we stood there till I came here back. I married an Israeli girl, which was my wife, the big Balas Chesed, known in Antwerp. And they called her the pillar of Chesed in Antwerp. And we stood there for 40 years. I took her like the Jews in the Midbar, and we came back to here. And Baruch Hashem, we have children here. And,
if I can just bring you have a very special picture of your parents and your wife, Alama Shalom.
These are my parents. Second. This is my oldest daughter with her husband, which is now a Maggid Shir in Aish, and he's also a rabbi in Ramat Eshkol. There's a big Bet Knesset called Kele Kedosh. This is my mother-in-law, and this is my son, the Bar Mitzvah Bocher. This was my wife, the Zechayna Lebrucha. And the rest, this was me, and my son, and this is a daughter.
And your father-in-law?
My father-in-law passed away when I was a Chosen.
When you were a Chosen?
They were both Polish. My mother-in-law from Lodz, and my father-in-law was from also Częstochow.
And they were survivors of the...
My mother-in-law was in 3 camps, and she was already in the gas room, and the German took her out with another one. She doesn't know why. She was already in the gas room.
Do you know which camp it was?
She was in Auschwitz, in the one next to Lublin.
Medanik.
Treblinka. And which was the third one? I don't
Next
know.
to Lublin's Medanik.
Yeah. Maybe, but she was in 3 camps, this I know. But she survived Nissen.
Because even to survive Treblinka, most people never survive.
Yeah, there stood only 70 people, I think, or maybe not. Maybe Majdanek and another one. Don't remember the third one, but I know she was in three camps. And she was married before the war. She had a child also. And they passed away in the war.
And she got remarried.
Remarried to my father-in-law, which was not so. He was married and she was married, and then he passed away when I was a hostel. He was ill for a few times.
Yeah, it's very special. What a special... so this was the bar mitzvah?
The bar mitzvah for my son, which is here, the youngest son, this one. This one.
It's a very, very special mishpacha.
Thank you.
And Meir, you have a very special, from a Sefer Torah. If you can...
This was the Meil from the Sefer Torah, and the Sefer Torah became postal, so my wife had the idea to put it here because the history, this is my father's name, this is my mother's name, and they were the son from Rabbi Menashe from Buchech, and the date, and this is his mother, which was shot in the war, and this is my mother's father, Yosef Arle made a mistake, and he was a rabbi from Lipkan, and when he was Nifter, and when his wife was Nifter, this is the one which was shoot here, and she is the son, and that's the whole story from her.
And Meir, if I can ask you,
Yeah.
your family and your wife and your wife's family, they went through unspeakable horrors in the Shoah, and yet the families remained from.
Yeah, all remain from.
So how do you explain it? Because it's so unbelievable. It's something.
There are a lot of people which
Sure, but it's amazing. It's it's
see,
more than amazing.
You see,
It's-
my mother-in-law was from 10 children, and they stood two. And the one was the rabbi, a big rabbi, a big Talmud Chacham, one of the biggest Talmud Chacham in Israel. And but he was very humble, how to say, and if I didn't have,
very modest, very modest.
yeah, very modest, and he didn't have to say. He was very known. He was known that he was taking kids to cross the road. Kids were one of the biggest Chacham from 8 years. He was taking kids from 6 years to pass the road. So they gave them the hand, but also they stood. They said that the Knesset Gedolim from the Aguda, all the rabbis were coming, all the rabbis. So they said they decided that who will be the biggest rabbi, the one which comes with the biggest car. And it was the rabbi from Strike, whereby he came by bus. This is the what is symbolizing him. It was so modest, unbelievable. He came once for the bris for my first enkel to Yerushalayim Friday. And he was davening 3 hours maybe in the morning, but he cut off his davening and he came. I have one son in Bnei Brak, and he brought him by a taxi because they wouldn't want to wait so far. And the Yosel Moil, which was famous in Yerushalayim, said for the Strike wherever, wait half an hour, and he arrived. And then on the way back, he saw that I'm giving money for my son to take him with a taxi. I need a taxi? Bring me just to the bus station. Friday afternoon, where he didn't finish his davening yet with his wife. At the end, somebody went to the boss, and it took him, and he asked him a few times, but you're not going for me specially.
Amazing. And Meir, can I ask you, you spent many years in Antwerp, in the Keller.
62 and a half years.
It's a very, very, very special Keller, the Antwerp Jewish community. What made that Keller? And a lot of them were survivors. They came back and they rebuilt their lives. What made the Antwerp Jewish community so very, very special, so united, so caring?
First of all, there were most of them which came, a lot of them were from people. Before the war there were 55,000 Jews, but most of them were killed. And then there came a lot of people, also this was before the war, there came a lot of people to go to the States with the Red Star Line boat. But and meanwhile, they saw it's good in Antwerp, so they stood. And after the war, a lot of people ran away from the communists after the war. And they stopped there, and there was a lot of panoso, easy panoso. And there were some people which gave away their private life to build up again the Jewish school Yisrael, where we learned, most of us, Yisrael and Beis Yaakov together. They was from much before the war. And so we learned all together, we knew each all together, and then we saw each all together in the Butei Midrashim, and when we brought the kids to school, and in the wars today. So we knew us very near, so therefore everybody knew everybody. So that was which made the Kehillah more unified. Two Kehillahs naturally. One more couldn't be without Machlokes, but anyhow, in the Bus there was no Machlokes.
And you happy you came to Eretz Israel?
I'm very happy. I wanted to come to Israel, but even my father wanted to come to Israel, but I didn't. I decided not to come before he passed away, because he lived till 96, and but as they say, old cupboard you shouldn't move. He wanted, but nobody yesterday. He was in his Medrash, he was saying Torah when the roof was not there. He was a very good speaker. He was also at 5 o'clock in the morning, was already by his forum. So that's what made the Kehillah very warm, because everybody knew everybody, you understand it? Yeah, even the non-religious Jews were also very common, and they knew the Yom Tovim, and the Bus was closed on Yom Kippur with the Goyim, everything, because there were a lot of diamond dealers were Jewish.
So it was closed on Yom Tovim and Shabbos?
No, only Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur.
The hall from the Bus was closed on Shabbos also, but the people could go up in their office. But Yom Kippur, the whole building was closed, because the direction of the Bus was a big part Jewish, but not all from.
But people gave a handshake, and that was the word, and the word meant
less than handshake. You just say Mazal and Bracha, and the Japanese also knew Mazal. Who was coming? This is all over the world in diamond businesses like this. And if you bought something for $10 million and you said this word, naturally, if you said that you can't pay or you want to have a reduction because you paid too much. So there was there was their own judges, and you could try to. But if you didn't want to pay because not paying, immediately you were scratched out from all the buses in the whole world. And there was Aguda.
It's an organization.
Organization of the whole world from the diamond bosses.
So Meir, what message do you give to your children and grandchildren, and
that in Antwerp we had Gan Eden on this world. If they should understand this, that's not so simple. That now it's much worse. Yeah, but then from where I lived, 20 minutes by foot, I had the Bus, I had the school for my children, I had the shops, the Jewish shops, I had about 35 Butei Midrashim, with everything in walking distance, not like this. And there was a big Parnusa until the 90s, was everybody at Parnusa. But so I tell them they should thank God that they were born in such a time, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu should help them. They should be able to continue with Torah and Ma'asim Torah.
It's wonderful, and it's just so wonderful that you're here in Eretz Israel, and it's such a good to meet you.
I like Eretz Israel. My wife likes Eretz Israel.
So, I just want to thank you. If I can just come in, I'm so grateful to you, and B'mit Toda Rabba. Thank you so much, and you should only have Mazel and Bracha.
Oh man, same to you.
It's been a big zchut, a big honor and a privilege to meet you.
Same to you, thank you.
And just be well, and thank you so much. And Meir, it's really very special, and you should just continue to have nachas from your children and your family and grandchildren. And may Besrim.
Thank you.
Toda Rabba.
So one of my cousins lived in Switzerland, in Zurich. And for the vacation, they went to Arosa, I think, in Sweden, and they were there every year. And one year, the Panovicherov came to Arosa. He wanted to rest because he was after an operation, and he asked for a room, but he couldn't go steps, and everything was full. So after a while, the Balbos from the hotel told him, I have an idea. I call up Marilus, which was, the father wasn't there, was in the business, but the mother with a small child, I don't know how, 6, 8 years, they were there in the room if they agreed to change room. So he called up the mother, she said yes, but I have to ask my son, Lazy is called Lazy, Marilus, and the son said yes, a child, what is it? And then she brought him a big present, a toy, and he told the Rebbe, I don't want it. So she told him, why don't you want it? I want from you a piece of paper that as I giving you my bed now, when I'll come to Ponovich, I'll get a bed. I have a child of 8 years. She gave him a paper. Or the Ponovich himself gave him the paper. I don't know, but he had a paper. But years later, when he was 16, 17, he had a very good head. He wanted to enter Ponovich. But they didn't want to take him in. There was nobody with his age in the Yeshiva Gedoyle. So he said, I want to see the room. And he sat there at the door from the room. And I told the Rebbe he wants to see the room till they let him in. And he told them that they want to take him in the yeshiva. They don't want to take him in the yeshiva because it's too young, but look what a paper I have. So after he saw to this, they took him in Rampanovich.
Amazing. Oh, what a special story. What a special family.
Yeah,
what a special
that's
family.
Also Rav Pesach Krohn tells it a lot. Maybe it's written even in his stories.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Please, with pleasure.